Hey guys.
Hi.
So, as we've been exploring in previous sessions, the value of sharing our feelings and giving feedback to each other, it's common at this stage to notice some tension and or different comfort levels with sharing these things. For example, in the last few sessions, we've had a few moments where people were trying to be honest with each other, and it got a little tense. And that's actually very typical at this stage. We're all here to learn and practice, and it's okay to have this trial and error. So today I wanted to start off by going over what makes good confrontation or challenging feedback and how that can be beneficial rather than harmful. So some key principles to keep in mind when we give this type of feedback to each other are making sure our feedback is clear and concise, share how the other person affects you rather than criticizing or judging the other person. It's not about it's not about giving direct advice. And it's ideal to speak up in the moment as it's happening rather than suppressing it and bringing it up later out of context. And a good way to make sure that the feedback lands productively for the recipient is to always keep a balance between uh, supportive or positive feedback with I don't like to say negative, but maybe more challenging feedback. So
Constructive.
I
Constructive.
want to give a quick example of what that can look like. So I'll give an example of a bad confrontation first. So for example, DeAndre, let's say I had a problem with you for some reason.
Mhm.
And if I said, DeAndre, whenever I finish saying something vulnerable, you always just go straight into your own experience with the same thing. You should learn to stay with what the person shared more rather than just quickly talking about yourself. I think that's very selfish.
Mhm.
So the reason for that is not a productive way of confronting others is one, it's a judgment of the other person. And two, I'm giving direct advice on what they should do. So in contrast to that, a good confrontation example would be DeAndre. I notice that whenever I share vulnerable things, you immediately go into sharing your own experience. I really appreciate the relatability of the things that you're sharing, and they're very helpful. However, I can't help but notice that it makes me feel unheard and as if my own experience isn't important enough to stay with. And the reason why this is a productive way of confrontation is because it focuses on how you're affecting me rather than me judging or criticizing you or giving you advice. I'm also balancing supportive feedback with challenging feedback, and that's going to help the recipient be more open to genuinely consider the feedback. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
Mm.
Hmm.
Especially the
Yeah.
idea of how that person's behavior is affecting you.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah, can you just ask the second question?
Sure. Okay, we're there. Well, personally, I don't see why we focus so much on problems and on confronting people with negative feelings. All this makes me want to retreat, and I'm afraid to say much because I'd rather hear positive feedback.
It sounds like focusing on problems can be a bit uncomfortable for you and makes you want to kind of pull back.
Mm.
And perhaps staying with positive feedback, it feels a lot safer. I think, first of all, thank you for being honest and bringing that up. I think this is a perfect opportunity to kind of explore that as it's coming up in the moment. So, James, would you be willing to share with us, the group, what that experience is like for you when you are, for example, having to give challenging feedback to someone else and how that's uncomfortable? Would that be something you're okay doing?
I think for me personally, what I don't want is I don't want someone else's anger. And I don't want to have to, in a group situation on the other side, have to defend myself. When I've said something and I mean it, if I'm being attacked and criticized for it, I just shut down. And likewise, if somebody is doing something that's kind of out of line or whatever, I'm reticent to confront because I don't want that person to explode and get angry and lead to further problems. So I tend to be non-confrontational in general.
Yeah, I'm hearing that you want to really avoid that conflict of
Mm,
the other person feeling like they're being attacked, which will lead to coming back towards you again, and that's something that makes you shut down, and that's not what you're here for.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be, I think that's very, first of all, that's great feedback you're giving right now of how this experience is like for you. Would you be willing to try an experiment and maybe confront me with something that you like a challenging feedback you have for me?
Sure. Um, Something like, well, I think that sometimes when, as a group counselor, uh, and I don't really mean this in real life, you're quick to move on with solutions, like they can be easy to implement. And sometimes I just don't see how some solutions are so easy to put into place straight away.
Hmm. So I'm hearing that when I go very when I give out solutions, it sounds very dismissive, as if it's just so, you shouldn't be able to do this so easily. It's a
Yeah.
little dismissive to the actual experience and um, maybe spending more time on developing these skills is going to be better rather than assuming it's taken for granted for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Thank you for that feedback. That's very helpful for me to know that now I know how my experience is affecting you, and that's going to help me work with the group a lot better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so in a group just like that, I think it's important to give and receive positive and negative feedback constructively because just like that, it allows valuable opportunities to see how we affect each other, and it leads to valuable insights and awareness both ways, bi-directionally. And another benefit of this is that without such feedback, sometimes we can't understand how our ways of confrontation or feedback might affect somebody who comes from a different background than us, you know? And we need that authentic communication to understand that somebody may not have the same way of communication. So I'm curious to hear if anybody in this group has noticed that the normal, typical way that we've been talking about giving feedback is very different from the way you've grown up to see that or express those things. Is there anybody who has experienced that?
Well, in my culture, we actually have a thing to where sometimes we will hold our opinions, and because it's like a sign of respect. We have to, it's like it's kind of like some people like to observe instead of responding first. They want to see how everything goes. Yeah, same thing is sort of like a respect issue, to where we don't really want to voice our opinion, but rather, let everything come to us, and then probably, we probably open up. But again, it's just based on respect. We usually don't give opinions on other people because it may be harmful, we think, you know.
Yes. Thank you for that. So from your background, it's better to it's a sign of respect to start with a little more observation
Hmm.
to avoid any uncomfortableness or any something that can be taken as conflict early on. But yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I think we all learned something about that, so that
Hmm.
from this point on, when you, DeAndre, um, let's say you're not confronting the way everyone else is, we
Hmm.
wouldn't see that now as a sign of this person is DeAndre is not willing to confront. This is just um, we know to just leave it alone, and that we can meet you where you are, and being patient, you'll get to a place where you feel like this is a time for you to interject more directly. But up to that point, this is just a sign of respect rather than a lack of willing to confront. um, I think that'll be very informative for everyone here as we keep on growing together. So yeah, this is the benefits of constructive or confrontation, positively, supportively, as well as challenging in a challenging manner. And this can really help this group become an even safer, more cohesive environment for growth and building trust. So I just want you guys to think of this as a space where we can be fully authentic. And I look forward to improving our communication together. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
Nice work.
Thank you.
That was very good. That was very good.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, so okay, so you ready for me? All right. Um, Hello, welcome group.
Hey, DeAndre.
I hope you have a good day. Hope you're having a good day. Today we're going to talk about confrontation and the how to confront someone and how not to confront someone. And so when you confront someone, it's always good to have some kind of respect and not to judge no one, because one way that's ineffective is like saying, okay, why are you talking too much? You're actually not leaving any time for no one else to talk in group. Again, if you do those type of things, again, you may, affect the group in a negative way. And so, however, an effective way to confront would be like, yeah, people need to talk in this group, but again, I know that I noticed that you're saying a lot, and it'll be helpful to include everybody else. That's an effective way. So in other words, you're really being you're having a sense of emotional intelligence. In other words, so that way you actually know that what you say affects others. And also too, when you have that awareness, you also get in touch with your feelings and your biases. How you actually feel, and that way you'll be in touch with just it's like being in control, being in touch with your own self and noticing how you feel, but also recognizing how other people feel, as if you respond a certain way. Okay, do someone want to actually respond to me in a confronting way?
Yeah. So, okay, I hear that, DeAndre, but I mean, sometimes, I feel like I don't see why we have to focus so much on these problems all the time and confronting people with negative feelings. That makes me, well, kind of uncomfortable. I don't really feel like being here when that happens. I feel like I think it would just be so much better if we can just always give positive feedback.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you gave me that feedback. How you feel. It's important to actually let others know how you feel. But also, in what you're saying is that you're disturbed by the activity of the group, how the group is moving. Yeah. I would ask you a question. Um, do you know how you're affecting people by that question? Have you thought about how you affect people?
By what I just said, how
Yeah.
does that affect people? No, I haven't thought of that. How does that affect others?
Again, it's like, when you words hurt. Words, like to say sticks and stones may break my bones. Well, words never hurt me. It's like, words can hurt, and it's also, best to be aware of what may hurt you. Think about what may hurt you, and that way you can think about others. What may hurt them, and so just think about that. Okay. Anybody have any cultural differences? Anybody want to speak about your cultural differences and a court and dealing with confrontation?
Well, sometimes I can feel it can be very difficult to speak about culture. I don't want to say something that might appear to be insensitive or might appear to be taken that even though I don't mean it that way. So I say nothing just in case something gets misinterpreted.
Okay.
So I,
I'm glad you let me know that. Because that way I want to look at you as others, not only me, but others want to look at you in a certain light of you're being disrespectful.
or
Um,
holding it all in and not participating.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, again, it's important. I'm glad you mentioned that about your cultural difference because again, we all have differences and we actually we have to respect those differences. And that's very important to know, that how, each difference how each person's difference can affect another person's difference, but also we're here to learn from each other and learn from each other's culture. That way we know how to respond to each other. And but that's I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And do anybody else have any other question?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like a lot of the challenges with confrontation that I'm noticing in this group is very direct and individual. Like if I had an issue with James, I'm encouraged to talk specifically to James. But I come from a collectivist culture, and we I feel like it would be more comfortable if I can, instead of framing it as these individuals have I have a problem with these individuals, just more of like the group as a whole, as a collection.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how I've always learned to, like, rather than saying the problems are one this person or that person, it's just, is the group being cohesive or not? That's just how. So I prefer a less directive to an individual and just more about the group as a whole. I wonder, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts are, your thoughts are valid. They're justified. Again, we have different cultural differences, and therefore, like you said before, you like to you're actually used to a collectivist. And whereas in the United States, or usually in other countries or other cultures are more individualistic, and therefore, there's a difference. And we just have to acknowledge that difference, and we will actually meet you where you're at by actually respecting that. And so, yeah, I respect that. I
Thank
respect
you.
that.
I appreciate that I can just keep my worldview and um,
Hmm.
communicate the way I know how.
Right, right. Yeah, this is a space. This is a safe space. Again, here you're here. I'm here for you. For both of you. So therefore, this is a safe place, and this is your time to express.
I appreciate that. Appreciate
Mhm.
that. There was yeah, some pressure to kind of conform, but it's good to know that I can just be myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's helpful for me too. I like to be myself too.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for coming to group, and hope to see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank
Okay.
you, DeAndre.
All right.
Hey, really good job.
Good job,
Okay.
Thank,
Andre.
thank you.
All right. Next batter up. Let me get my stuff together. DeAndre, I think it's up to you to ask me the question about whatever it is.
The second part of the prompt, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. 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 Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Where are we? 428. Boom. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the group therapy sessions. I'm really glad to see you all here. So today I want to, before we really get started, I just want to talk to you a little bit about something that's been coming up. It's a little bit uncomfortable, and it's about confrontation. Now, before I dive in, I just want to say that confrontation in a therapy session, especially in a group therapy session, it's not about attacking or criticizing, but it's actually an opportunity for some really constructive feedback that invites us all to examine our different discrepancies and and actually to develop some confrontation skills. So this is really an opportunity to help each other and ourselves grow. So I'd like to do something to help us understand this. So if somebody would be willing to just to demonstrate the difference between effective and ineffective communication, if one of you, either of you, would just like to imagine that you've been talking in a group for past few weeks about wanting to make a change in your life, maybe standing up to somebody or leaving a bad situation, just something you keep saying but haven't done yet. And briefly, just tell us what this is and express some frustration in not having done that yet.
Okay.
If you,
I'll go.
okay, thank you.
Well, I don't see why the focus is so much on problems in here. You focus too much on problems, and like, I want to solve the problem, but yeah, I don't want to focus on my problem, or not just my problem, but again, let's focus on some good things. Some good things other than problems. And however, I think this type of confrontation is ineffective, I guess.
Sure. Well, sorry, I should have said I jumped ahead there with the prompt, but basically what we wanted to do here is just talk about how effective feedback needs to be specific. It needs to focus on how the person affects the giver. So it needs to be basically delivered in the here and now to address our interpersonal relationships. So what we need to do is in that case acknowledge the person's frustration. And that's the first thing to do. Acknowledge that we can see somebody's having an issue expressing themselves in the group. And at the same time, disclose that we're noticing a pattern. So, something that we can say is, I find myself feeling concerned for you because I sense that you're staying stuck. Um, and what you can actually do is, in this case, ask that person what is the first thought or feeling that comes up to them, rather than pushing them or telling them that they have a problem. You're really asking them to explain their own problem to you and how that stops. So essentially, that is effective feedback. It's just clear, timely, and non-judgmental. And the key is that it focuses on relationships between us and not on labeling or judging.
Okay.
Now, DeAndre, thank you very much for your previous comment. Sorry I made that out of turn, but to respond to that, thank you very much for sharing. First of all, I know it's not easy for everybody to share everything in a group at all times. But again, this is a really good opportunity to look at something very important, which is when you said you'd rather hear positive feedback. I would like to know to you, what does that actually mean?
Well, positive was like instead of, focusing on, I don't like negative stuff, negative things to focus on the negative because I was, um, my faith, we actually like to focus on the good things. And it just, bro, it just really eats me up,
Gotcha.
because we're staying in one area. And it's like, I would like to at least go to the positive instead of the negative. At least that's why I think about problems.
Great. Well, that's totally understandable. However, I'd like you to think about it in a slightly different way when you're getting negative feedback, which you might think in this group, which is that positive feedback can actually be, or confrontation can actually be a form of positive feedback.
Mhm.
Um, it actually shows that somebody cares enough about you to say something that you might not be seeing in yourself. Another way to think about it is if someone in this group sees you doing something that's hurting you or keeping you stuck, and they say nothing because they don't want you to feel uncomfortable, is that really caring about you?
Okay, okay, I got you. I understand now. I understand. So
Yeah.
it's like it's to kind of let me see what I'm doing, and also it's basically to help the group.
Yeah, and it's not to look at confrontation as always being negative, but sometimes difficult. If you want to build muscle, you got to lift weights and it's going to burn.
Mm.
There's a little bit of discomfort that comes with it, but it doesn't mean it's criticism. It just means that it's something that it does help us grow. Um, Now, let me see what else I got to do. So I want to talk to you guys very briefly about confrontation in a multicultural setting, because this can be obviously very difficult. We are a multicultural group, and diversity is clearly one of our greatest strengths. But that does mean that we need to be very thoughtful about how our culture influences not only our communication, but indeed our confrontation. So, for instance, in some cultures, direct eye contact during a difficult conversation is a sign of respect. But in others, it can be seen as being quite disrespectful or even aggressive. Same goes with raising your voice and showing passion. Sometimes it can be seen as being really engaging, whereas others can see it as a loss of control or even aggression. So, in a situation where that happens, I just want to where there's some sort of tension where somebody says you're getting too emotional, or there's some kind of cultural miscommunication that is evident to everybody or to anybody. The approach that I want you to consider adopting is saying that I'm noticing some tension now and that there's something important happening that we need to talk about together. So it's basically not just allowing somebody to vent, but listening to them and inviting them to communicate and share it rather than just being angry and venting. Basically creating a safe space for people to be able to talk about what they think and feel directly. It's also important that the rest of the group has a chance to involve themselves and what it's like for us all to witness this. Because one of the main things about confrontation and conflict is it doesn't just affect the people directly involved, but everybody else vicariously. And I think we can all relate to that when we were kids and we heard our parents fighting. Um, Still, culture isn't just about race and ethnicity. Just to be clear, it's also about family and religion and gender. So while confrontation can be different in a monocultural setting, um, it's not necessarily uh, as healthy because sometimes people can assume norms, if that makes sense. Whereas in a diverse group, we actually have kind of a gift, a real advantage of having multiple perspectives, which means we can have much easier, more open and direct conversations about communication in general. So I think that's a great benefit to confrontation within our group, is that we're not from such a very similar, nuanced background. So we can actually put these things on the table. And that's about it. Basically, I just want to finish by saying before we continue our session that confrontation is a skill, and that research tells us that it's really important to accept responsibility for our confrontation and if we're how we make other people feel. But that's why we're here working together. And the willingness is to risk the level of trust and engage in that with each other. And hopefully, we'll all be able to keep building trust together through our confrontation in a healthy way. So, thank you very much for listening, and may the force be with you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
James.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right on. That's
Good
great.
stuff.
It's
Good
great.
stuff.
It's been great.
All right. Oh, we better stop recording for
Oh,
Dr.
yeah,
Oh,
Paul.
yeah.
okay, yeah.